Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Geeky Pod with Manas. So in today's episode, we have a very special guest. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at IIT BHU. He received his Ph.D. in Structural Engineering from IIT Guwahati and graduated from NIT Agartala with a B.Tech in Civil Engineering. Prior to IIT BHU, he was a postdoc research fellow at University College, Dublin, Ireland. Though we were in different branches during our bachelor's degree, he is a very good friend of mine, and today in this episode and the subsequent episode we are going to talk about various topics ranging from life of a professor, PhD, paper publications, masters, higher studies and more. We'll also try some anecdotes from his own life and experience and how he completed his PhD in less than 3 years of time. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Basuraj Bhowmik, Assistant Professor, IIT BHU. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel for more such content where we discuss with experts regarding their career and different career paths after you graduate from an institute, be it any degree. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Thank you. Thank you, Basuraj, for joining in Geeky Pod with Manas.
Thanks so much, Manas. It has been quite some time since we met, actually, and it's really nice to see you. Always charming, always with a smiling face. So it's really nice having you. Yeah.
Same here. So where are you right now?
Right now I'm in Varanasi. So I'm an assistant professor at IIT BHU in Varanasi.
Okay.
So I'm trying to spend a low-key life over here.
Okay. Great. So first you tell me how is your life as an assistant professor? What is a day in your life looks like?
Okay. So a typical day for an assistant professor, it juggles between a lot of things. They're not only teaching and research responsibilities, we also have some administrative responsibility.
Okay.
And that can range anywhere from new PhD student recruitment to maybe taking care of some rooms, if the resources are there properly or not, or maybe some new faculty recruitment as well. So these are the things which we need to juggle around every day.
Okay.
On top of that, there is one more thing. For research, we need to get some money from the government always. So writing projects and acquiring funding from government resources is a very time-consuming process. And the ratio is around 1:7. So you apply for 7 times, you get lucky once. So that is why you have to be on point and you have to write as many projects as you can, and you can just hope to get any one of them. So that is how a typical day looks like. You have to do a lot of things: teaching, research, administration, and project funding.
Okay. So, how is it different from from earlier colleges that you attended, and now you are supervising students and various other activities in the university? So, how different you are feeling like from being a student now being a professor?
So being on the other side of the table, it actually gives me butterflies in my stomach. But the thing is, truth to be told, it's quite nice because I get to educate a new generation of students. Okay. And on top of that, since that I have transitioned into an assistant professor phase, what I feel that my students should not make the mistakes that I did. Okay. And being a faculty member comes with some of the perks. I'll just give you one simple example. A couple of weeks ago, Anubhav Singh Basri was performing over here.
Yeah.
We all know him. He's so great.
Yes.
So we actually got the VIP seats, for the cultural fest that happened, and it was not even 50 feet from the main stage, and we got to see him live and everything, and that was all free. And the students actually came with us so that my wife and I could get seated. They actually brought us some water and everything so that we are comfortable. So that VIP treatment is somewhere there. There is one more thing. Students tend to address every professor as a sir or madam. I try not to do that because I worked in the Europe and the US for quite some time. So that is why I ask everyone to call me by their names. Well, some students do, some students still don't. But then again, there is a mutual level of respect that we have for each other.
Okay. So, you always plan to be a professor, or was there an alternate plan B?
Truth be told, I always like to teach. Okay. I always like to teach. Even during my B.Tech days, I tried to teach a few class 10th or 11th students. And it was not for the pocket money. Trust me on that. It was not for the pocket money. It was just for the passion of teaching. And I actually like teaching. Um, After B.Tech, I joined IIT Guwahati. So during
Okay.
that time, I didn't have any idea of master's or a PhD. But as and when it progressed, I felt that, okay, this might be the way to go. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, I had a career snap when I thought of working in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with the industry is, or I might be the really wrong person to ask that. If you are working in an R&D center, suddenly if the funding stops, you just stop all your research. But that
Oh,
freedom you have in academia, as long as you don't get that small result that you are hoping for, you can still work, considering
okay.
you have some funding and, of course, considering you have the students working with you and everything. So I feel that yes, teaching was my passion. I followed that life, and let's see how it goes.
Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah. So, you have like we together have completed our bachelors. Then you shifted to
Yes, we
higher
did.
studies. So tell us about that journey, like how you uh, went to IIT BHU finally after National Institute
Okay.
of Technology, Agartala. Yeah.
So it comes. This is a multi-part answer. Okay. So the first
Okay.
part was after my B.Tech. We have all done it together. You got a really nice job. I got quite a good job as well at L&T, but
Uh-huh.
I never joined there. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I applied for various masters and PhD positions through GATE exam. I could not make the cut in IIT Madras. Okay, there was
Mm-hmm.
only one student who was selected who was actually the B.Tech from IIT Madras. Okay, so never made the cut.
Okay.
IIT Guwahati was quite good enough. We had the interview. After I had the interview, I got the notification maybe 2 months later.
Mm-hmm.
I went there. I had my master's and PhD done in, well, truth be told, it was 2 years, 11 months. Okay.
Oh.
But it's 3 years
Wow.
for everyone. Okay. I used to work day and night for that during that time. Um, After IIT Guwahati, what I did was I had not defended my thesis up until then.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went for an industrial job at Siemens, okay, in
Mm-hmm.
Gurgaon. So while being employed over there, I defended my thesis, and then I
Mm-hmm.
left the job at Siemens to get a postdoctoral position in University College Dublin, Ireland. So
Okay.
over the years, I have been shifting from Ireland to UK and then to the US and perhaps Finland, Denmark, and to a lot of places as visiting researchers.
Okay.
During that position, I got to travel a lot of the places. And then I had a really wonderful idea to ask my wife to come to Italy or something. And then the COVID struck. So after COVID, I came back. During COVID, I came back. I still continued my postdoctoral position online. And then, I got married. And then I joined at a private university, Geetham, in Bangalore.
Okay.
So after working there for around 6 to 7 months, finally joined IIT BHU as an assistant professor in the Department of Civil Engineering. The prime
So,
reason for joining Geetham was to continue my research activities, and
mhm.
IITs had a temporary freeze because of COVID. So that is why I kind
So
of
you
joined.
joined during COVID to IIT BHU?
It was almost towards the end of the COVID, so I joined last year. It has been
Okay.
7, 8 months. It hasn't been a year yet. I'm still
Oh,
hoping that the year goes over as soon as possible.
great. So you mentioned that you had integrated masters and PhD together, right, in IIT Guwahati. So,
Yes.
I mean, originally that course is of 3 years or more,
Uh,
because if someone goes in normal line, so 2 years will be masters and PhD next. So just put a light on that, how that much difference is.
okay. So first things first, there was no timeline barrier on that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can complete your PhD in one day, that's totally fine. But
Oh.
you need to have some formalities done and everything. So what happens typically in an integrated PhD is that in the first year, you actually sit with the master students who are there only for their MTech studies, and you
Okay.
sit with them. And in the first year, first semester, second semester, you learn all the master's MTech things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference that we have in an integrated PhD is that in the second year, while the master students actually write their thesis, we start doing our own research work for PhD. So at the end of 2 years, MTech students get one thesis and then they leave the system.
Okay.
And maybe after 2 years, we are still continuing for as our PhD researchers. But I was lucky enough. My supervisor pushed me real hard, and I actually
Okay.
had a master's friend. So he left after 2 years. So I kind of felt alone. So due to that loneliness and everything, I just worked. I used
Work
to
like
work quite
anything.
much, and
Uh-huh.
then I completed it in almost 3 years. Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Great.
to answer the second part of your question, typical masters take around 2 years, and then if you have a PhD, well, if you are slightly taking it on the moderate side, then it might take you 5 years. But if you are
Okay.
working quite hard, then 3.5 to 4 years sounds achievable. So you are
Okay.
actually saving a few years if you're doing an integrated MTech and PhD.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned that while working in, I mean, projects outside you after your master's, you defended your PhD, right?
Yeah.
So when you say defend, right? So what do you mean by that? Like, what is that process?
Okay.
I'm just curious to know. Yeah.
So when you defend your PhD thesis, you need to provide a presentation. Okay.
Okay.
So the presentation will be attended not only by your supervisor, but also the external people
Mm-hmm.
from universities outside of India. There will be an external expert, and then there will be one expert within India, but outside of
Mm-hmm.
your institute. So
Okay.
over there, you have to present whatever you worked on your PhD, maybe since the last 3 or 4 years, and then you have to answer their questions in such a way, such that it shows that you are the expert of whatever work that you have done.
Okay.
You can think of your PhD like your baby. Okay.
Hmm.
So you want your baby to grow up in a certain way. You want them to be shielded from the outside evil of the universe, and then you want them to be really leading a noble path and everything. So you need to defend your work in such a way like that it is your baby. Okay. You
Okay.
need to be at point. You need to show that you are the expert of your domain and that nobody is better than you on this. Because a
Mm-hmm.
PhD, even if it provides an incremental change in whatever existing thought process we have, that is still a novel idea. That is still the
Mm-hmm.
new idea that you have. And every PhD is different. Even if it is based on some platform, every
Mm-hmm.
PhD is different. That is your novelness or novelty or your newness in the entire area. And you are the only expert. So that is how you defend your thesis.
Okay, so is it just like elimination round? If you are not successfully defending that, you might be rejected for that PhD degree.
Well, defense is kind of a formality, to be very honest. Okay.
Okay.
Defense happens after your synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
So during your synopsis, you present the exact same things. So synopsis is basically a summary of your PhD work. You present
Mm-hmm.
the exact same thing. Once it is approved, you write your thesis, send the thesis to your external expert within India and outside of the country. And then when the thesis comes back, you perform all the modifications and then you finally defend it. So defense is kind of a formality, but the synopsis is hard. Trust me on that. And when I say it is hard, I remember standing there for 3.5 hours, standing there, okay, in the hall.
Okay.
I was continuously sweating even if the AC was on. It was so hard, but my supervisors and all the experts were very impressed. That is kind of an elimination round. So if you don't perform, you will get a 6 month extension. So that
Okay.
actually looks bad on your career. But defense is kind of a formality, like because you have completed your synopsis, the people know you and everything. So it's just
It's
okay.
just
You're
okay.
there for it. In fact, parents also come to watch the defense. So they are like, okay, you
Oh,
should not be embarrassed before you're in front of your parents.
okay. Okay. So as you mentioned that like we need to submit or present your synopsis, right? So for that, basically, you might be busy in your career, maybe writing some publications like papers,
Yeah.
right? Research papers. So uh, how to start with writing a research paper, or maybe uh, where to publish, what is this publication all about? Maybe if you can put some light on that as
Yeah. That is actually an extended topic. Okay. So I can speak for hours on that. Okay.
well.
So when we try to complete our PhD, we send our work to some journals in the form
Uh-huh.
of journal articles. Usually, we try to maintain the standard of the journal so that they should not be such journals which actually don't make any sense during your faculty recruitment. So usually we call them SCI journals, Science
Mm-hmm.
Citation Index journals. Okay. So whenever we write the paper, we have to have some basic idea about what the new thing that we are doing. So if we write a paper, the paper, it has a structure. It goes like this. First, you have to write an abstract,
Mm-hmm.
which is the actual summary of the paper. Then you have to come up with the introduction. In the introduction, from the introduction onwards, the actual paper starts. So in the introduction, you need to provide some light about what you are trying to do and what are the developments that have been done and what have not been done that you are trying to address.
Okay.
Next, you come up with a background or a literature review that, okay, see, for 50 years, people have been doing it like this, but that method is wrong. We are proposing a new method, and this is how we feel that it is better. Okay. In the third section, you need to write about methodology. What is the new method that you are proposing?
Mm-hmm.
In the fourth section, what I believe is it should be a numerical simulation. So that simulation should stay inside your computer. It should not go outside. It should be in the matrix. Okay. So that's a numerical simulation that we have. Fifth section, we can have an experimental study. And if your resources permit you, then you can have a field study as well. And finally, you conclude the paper. So the length of the paper can be, I'm talking especially about civil engineering, the length of the paper can be anywhere between 10 to 15 pages. And that is a standard one. But my supervisor used to push me for longer length papers, and I felt that it helped me in the longer run. So my first paper went for 40 pages or something, 40 A4 size pages. Okay. And that was one of the comments that I got from the editor. Why is the paper so long? And we were like, okay, we had to write so many things. So that was quite long. The method of publication goes like this. You send it to the journal. Then there is one editor who is assigned to you. The editor will send your paper to some reviewers who are the experts in that area. Okay. And he or she will make sure that the reviewers don't have a conflict of interest with you. For example, you have already written a paper with that reviewer. So automatically your paper will not go to that person.
Okay.
So based on the blind review process, we don't know who the reviewers are, but the reviewers know us. Okay. So it's a single blind peer review process. Then we get some review comments. Some of them are harsh, some of them are illogical, some of them are quite constructive. Sometimes they're like, okay, we didn't find a single word, so your paper is rejected. Okay, some reviewers are so bad in that. Then you address those review comments in typically maybe a month or so. Then you send it back again in the hopes that the paper will now be accepted. So once it gets accepted, it gets published again after 2 months. So typically, if you are trying to send a paper and then starting it from day one, 6 months should be a good standard estimate of your paper getting published after all rounds of reviews.
Okay. So when you say publications, like these are international organizations like IEEE and Springer, like that, is it? Or if you can name some others.
Absolutely. So IEEE is quite good for electrical engineering and CAC background like yours.
Okay.
I have been trying to make the cut in IEEE, but I haven't had the luck of publishing a paper yet. For civil engineering, we have Elsevier. We also have Springer Nature. And we have American Society of Civil Engineers, which is ASC. So that is the holy grail for our civil engineering journals. So if you have an ASC publication, it's like, okay, you are really good.
And I believe you definitely have.
Oh, yeah, I do. But it's nothing like that. My peers have a better number of publications than me. But truth be told, publications are quite hard coming by, and the students need to be sincere enough. That is the issue, because at this stage, when we are all assistant professor levels, or maybe some of my friends are postdocs or something, we need someone to get their hands dirty and maybe run some course. Just go and run some Python course over there. Okay, because we are stuck with so much of administrative responsibilities, funding acquisition, hiring new students, and then teaching. Teaching, it takes a huge effort. I teach around 10 hours per week, and that's a complete mess. So I'm actually scared for tomorrow, because I need to start preparing the lecture notes for the next week.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So in the similar line, like you mentioned, once we publish some paper, like some student or some research associate publishes some papers, sometimes I've seen that people go to conferences and presenting that as well. So what are those conferences all about, and why do they need to present? Or like, is it like a prestigious thing, or maybe You can
Yeah.
explain.
So, conferences give you a chance to disseminate your findings to the wider audience. Because in a
Okay.
room of 40 people, they'll have different backgrounds. Some of them might be working in earthquake engineering, some of them might be working in structural analysis background, or maybe working with concrete, or I'm a person who works with aluminium and steel and dynamic stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
you get to disseminate your work to a target audience. It is prestigious because you are one of the people who is selected to present something at a conference, either in the form of a paper or in the form of a poster presentation. Or in some cases, as I have seen for my when my career transitioned into an assistant professor role, I get to give some keynote speech.
Mm-hmm.
So a keynote speech is for someone who is an expert in that area, and that he or she is asked to come in to provide an expert opinion in that area. So conference dissemination, well, it is very good for networking. It is very, very good for networking. Maybe in the next conference, you find your next postdoc supervisor. Maybe you dazzle someone with your skills or with your oratory so much that that person is quite interested in taking you, hiring you as a postdoc or something. The next important thing is it actually gives your entire summary of a paper. Maybe if you are writing a paper for 40 pages, you try to give a real quick summary and along with a demonstration, maybe in the form of a code or maybe videos or GIS, you are the better judge of it. So in the form of those representations, you can demonstrate your work to a larger audience. And the most important thing is selection of the conference. So if you are inexperienced, you should always rely on a supervisor, whichever conference he or she tries to send you to, you should go there. But once you become an independent researcher, you need to have some idea that will that conference give me the gateway or will that conference give me the leverage to disseminate my findings to a greater audience? Will it help me in my career? Will that line that I have presented in the conference actually help me in my CV? So you need to think about that as
Okay. Okay. Understood. So you already mentioned this might be a question, a duplicate question. So I want to know like how these publications are evaluated. You mentioned that there will be a blind set of reviewers will be reviewing these papers, but what are the criterias which are checked so that something can be rejected or something can be accepted or constructive feedbacks can be given out?
well. Exactly. So that is actually a good question. So we don't have a set of guidelines for accepting or rejecting a paper. So
Mm-hmm.
when I review some paper, I try to see that how novel is that paper? How is it different and how is it newer from already existing, literature? Next, I try to see how much of a methodological difference is there with the existing literature and what is the newness and what sort of scientific treatment has it been given. Next, I try to see that if the work that is provided, does it actually have some practical application? Can I use it for improving the quality of life of the people? Can
Mm-hmm.
I use it to help someone overcome their, whatever danger or overcome their bias or some behavior? So if I see that it is only a numerical simulation, that means that there is no practical application of that. So I ask the authors that please provide some practical application so that it can be accepted into the paper. So
Mm-hmm.
once all of the check boxes are ticked, then it is accepted for publication, at least from my side. And I believe that this rigorous review process actually led me to getting a Best Reviewer award. Okay,
Yes, yes.
so
Congratulations on that.
thanks. So I believe that that might be one of the correct ways to go, but more than happy to learn things on the way.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So, and let's say I published one paper, right? So now some other person can cite my publication, and based on that, they can put more ideas on top of it, maybe. So, what is that citation about? And recently, you have reached a milestone as well. You mentioned on citation
Yeah,
on your papers. So, both, if you can
yeah,
explain how was it and what it is.
absolutely. So let's say you have an exciting IEEE paper which was lined up and which was published. Okay. And
Okay.
I saw that IEEE paper and I found it to be really useful. and I'm using some of the ideas that you have, either maybe in the form of the maths that you have shown, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
one of the experiments that you have conducted, and I'm using the data. So once I'm using the data, it is my responsibility to cite your paper. It is a form of saying thank you.
Okay.
Okay, it is a form of saying thank you for your paper. Thank you for your work. I'll cite your paper, and based on whatever you have done, I'll try to improve on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my way of saying thank you. So citations actually increase over the years. The more number of citations, more is your scholarly effect or scholarly presence
Okay.
over the academic industry. Recently, I received a milestone of 10 in H index. So that is a double digit milestone. Okay.
Wow.
I was chasing it for quite some time now, but then it suddenly happened. And it means that there are 10 papers of mine which at least have 10 citations.
10
I have
into
more
10.
number of papers. Yeah, I have more number of papers, but at least there are 10 papers which have at least 10 citations.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So if my 11th paper gets 11 citations, my H index will be 11.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Got
So
it.
it works like that. And it's a Google Scholar thing. It counts it using some machine learning stuff. You are the better judge of it. So I'm not sure
Okay.
about
Okay.
that.
So you have seen how education system is in India in terms of higher studies, and you've also seen how it is in foreign countries, maybe London, Finland, Ireland, all those places. So what is the difference you have seen between India and foreign countries in terms of higher education? Both good and
In
bad, you
terms
can
of
mention.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of higher education, what I believe India has done good. Okay, people try to always see the bad side. What
Yeah.
India has done good is producing an excellent array of engineers who are really good with maths, who are really good with
Hmm.
computers, and
Hmm.
who are good in solving a practical problem. That is the issue which I see abroad. People will carry out tons of experiments. They don't have
Hmm.
people to analyze the data. That is one
Okay.
of the issues they are facing. What India hasn't been able to do is to objectify the entire engineering or the education system in terms of better prodigy or better outreach of the engineering topics that are being taught. People over here try to stick to the notion or the dogma that has been followed over the years, and then they don't try and change it. So once they try and change that notion, it becomes important to us to adopt it. For example, if I work in the area of structural health monitoring, which is a
Hmm.
really new and emerging topic, and I'm not able to teach it to the students just because some of the existing syllabus is already there, then it does not make any sense. But the contrary is quite prevalent over the foreign countries, that whatever new topic comes up, let us float a course on it. Let us float an online course on
Hmm.
it, or let us have some seminar about it. Let us see if we can get people interested in that, and maybe we can work as an entire group and then maybe apply for funding. So that objectiveness is there, which
Okay.
India should also try and come up with. But what I believe is that along with the IISc, IIT Bombay, and other IITs over here, we are trying to lead the way for engineering, and we just hope that the entire country comes up along with this journey, and maybe try and change the structural traditional parameters that we have towards the contemporary measures.
Okay. So you mentioned that in foreign countries, some students might group up and look for seminars and fundings for doing that research, maybe. So, what is the scope in India in terms of research when it comes to funds
Okay.
allocation and all? So, from student perspective, I'm asking, not from professors.
Yeah. So the basic difference between the higher education in India and abroad is that in India, we are primarily funded by the government of India,
Hmm.
both for masters and for PhD. And recently, there has been a new Prime Minister Research Fellowship Fund, which actually entitles the student to getting 70,000 rupees instead
Per
of the
year,
traditional 35,000. Yeah, no, per month.
per month. Okay.
Instead of the traditional 35,000 rupees that a PhD student might have had. So if you are eligible for a PMRF, and then if you are applying for it and you are getting it, there's nothing like it. It's completely non-taxable, man. So
Wow.
it's nothing like that.
Yes.
Yeah, so in India, primarily the funding for PhDs and masters, it is done by the government of India. But in the outside countries, especially in the Europe and in the US, it is carried out by publicly funded institutions and some industrial organizations.
Mm-hmm.
For example, publicly funded institution, as in it can be the US Department of Energy or it can be US NASA. For Europe, it can be some industry which is funding sustainable energy development activities. So that is purely funded. And
Okay.
that is the difference we have in India, that we do not have the backing of an industry until and unless the industry signs an MOU with that particular institute.
Mm-hmm.
So once, let's say if some industry has signed an MOU with some of the IITs, then there can be an exchange of student and perhaps the industry can pay the student. But that is not a common occurrence here.
It's there, but it's very exceptional cases, maybe.
It's one of the exceptional cases.
Okay. Okay. So recently, I mean, maybe I might be wrong because I don't have the exact data, but I have seen my friends and friends, their friends are moving to abroad for higher studies. You also might have seen your friends and your friends' friends, mutual friends, moving to abroad for higher studies, and some juniors as well. So, why do you think that outflux of students to foreign countries for higher studies? Is there like lack of seats in
Yeah.
India, or it's more lucrative to go to abroad?
Trust me, there are no lack of seats in India. We have every time we hire some PhD students, there remains some quota that remains goes unfilled.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
The lucrativeness or the attractiveness or the lure to go abroad, that always remains. I know I have done that too. But if you are trying to get a higher education in the form of masters and PhD from abroad, it is important in the Indian context because that counts as a foreign experience in your profile. So if you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to apply for an IIT position as a faculty member, then it looks good on your profile that you have the best of both the worlds. You know what things are
Okay.
going in Asia. You know how
Mm-hmm.
things are going in the US and maybe through your collaborations in Europe. Okay. So it gives you a brief overview or a summary of whatever is going abroad. And then you are trying to bring those improvements into the country so that our country grows up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that way it looks good on our profile. But the brain drain is something which we should not encourage. And that is why the people who have already been through this path, we must ensure that we try to retain the students in such a way
Mm-hmm.
that the students are homegrown. They are the ones who have the experience, not only from Asia, but also from other different countries, maybe by going there as a visiting researcher or maybe through conference disseminations, as we have talked about, and then providing a brief overview of the entire experience whenever they apply for a faculty position.
Okay. Okay.